You're listening to an archived Cabral Concept podcast. After listening to this show, check out the most up-to-date podcasts available at stephencabral.com/podcasts or search directly on iTunes. And now, welcome to the Cabral Concept, where board-certified naturopath and integrative health practitioner Dr. Stephen Cabral shares how he was diagnosed at the age of 17 with a life-altering illness and given no hope for recovery. It was only after studying and traveling all over the world did he discover how to combine ancient Ayurvedic healing practices with state-of-the-art naturopathic and functional medicine to fully rebalance the body and re-energize it with life. It's time to discover how to get well, lose weight, and finally feel alive again. And now, here's your host, Dr. Stephen Cabral.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Cabral Concept. Thanks so much for joining me here today on this Total Wellness Tuesday, where the topic is going to be creating a guide for yourself using these 8 steps to be more mindful when you eat. And you might say to yourself, well, I'm already pretty mindful. I eat pretty well. Why do I need this information? Here's why. You are not what you eat. This is very important because a lot of people say, and a lot of people have heard, you are what you eat, but you are not what you eat. You are what you break down, absorb, and your cells see. So you can eat the absolute best foods in the world, but it does not matter if your body is stuck in the fight or flight. And it also doesn't matter if you have weak hydrochloric acid in your stomach. And it doesn't matter if you're not producing enough enzymes or enough bile from your liver or gallbladder. And it also doesn't matter if your bacterial flora, the microbiome filled with 100 trillion different probiotics or bacteria or bacterial-based cells, if that is not balanced and that is not working, you are not what you eat because you're not able to break it all down, which is why so many people out there have massive cravings for a lot of sugary-based foods. Well, sugary foods are easy to break down. It's fast fuel. Your body's not crazy. It says, hey, give me that fast fuel. I'll use it. I'll feed this bacteria. I'll feed the yeast. And I'll have some sugar left over for my brain and nervous system. Why? Because you're in the fight or flight. So what we have to do today is learn to shift out of the fight or flight and to shift into that parasympathetic nervous system, which is the rest and relax, not the sympathetic nervous system, which is the fight or flight. And on yesterday's show, if you tuned into yesterday's show, you'll have heard 1 out of the 5 things that I do that I always put on my not-to-do list is having a quieter-based lunch. And I want to touch on these things today because it's not just about quiet. You should actually be able to eat mindfully, whether you're in a room full of 100 people and there's lots of noise or not. What you need to do, though, is you need to actually be focusing on what you're doing at the time. Being mindful in general, it's funny because being mindful in general is actually getting out of your mind. It's getting out of the million thoughts that you have right now and getting out of the stress that you're currently experiencing. The thing that matters the most to your body is believing and feeling it's in a safe and relaxed environment. The more of a relaxed and safe environment that it's in, the more it's going to be in that parasympathetic nervous system. That is where all the healing takes place, and that is where the best digestion takes place. I'll tell you this, and I've actually said this before, but the only people who don't heal from digestive-based issues are the people that cannot relax the central nervous system. And here's why. You can run the complete Candida metabolic and vitamins test. I'm trying to think of the new names that we're using for these new updated tests. And you can run the bacterial and parasite stool test. You can run the food sensitivity test. But what happens is this. Let's say that we find parasites. We find H. pylori. We find bacterial overgrowth. And we find Candida. Let's say we find the big 4, right? Those are the 4 that you're going to find. That's what we look for. Well, what happens is this. We clear all those up. Let's say it's 3 to 4 months. Retest, they're all gone. They're balanced. And yet you still have some bloating. You still have some gas. You might still have some constipation. Why is that? The reason is this. When you are stuck, chronically stressed, and in a spot that your body believes it's under constant tension, puts a hold on the digestive system. Because when you're in fight or flight, your body has to shift into survival mode. When you shift into survival mode, your body begins to do a couple things. Begins to slow the sex hormones. Begins to shift more towards the stress hormones. Adrenaline and cortisol would be two of those. Aldosterone's another. What else happens is this. Your digestive system begins to slow. And the reason is if you're under stress, your body doesn't expect you to be eating. If you're eating, you should be relaxed, right? Well, that's not the way that things always work in today's society. We don't always break our fast, right? We don't always relax to actually get into eating. So what we want to do today is to create an environment where we're more relaxed around when we do eat, so that when we eat that food, we actually absorb the nutrients. This will lead to tremendous changes in your body and your mind. You'll be less anxious. You'll feel less irritable. You'll feel less overwhelmed. You're going to have better digestion, which means less bloating, less gas, less acid reflux, less constipation. The other thing is this. When you absorb more nutrients, your body doesn't have as many cravings. We hear so much over and over after just 21 days on the CBO protocol or just 21 days after the detox, they don't need to be constantly eating. People don't have those cravings. Blood sugar is better regulated. Body's feeling more balanced. And what happens is you start to absorb more of the nutrients you eat. So when you eat 1,000 calories, you're getting the nutrients from those 1,000 calories. Your body is not saying, oh, I only got 50% of that. Eat another 1,000 calories, because that's why so many people have massive cravings. So what I want to go over today is this. There's 8 main ways I want to give you that you can be more mindful when you eat, and you don't have to implement all of them. I would actually just start with maybe 1, maybe 2. That's all I usually recommend anyways. When people meet with us, so let's just say they run a lab or they run a few labs, we go through what the labs mean. We give them a protocol. We used to give people a 7 to 10 page report of things to do. Guess what happened? They never read it. It was too overwhelming. What do? A 1-page cheat sheet. That's it. We give them 1 or 2 main things to do because we know we're going to talk with them hopefully in another 4 to 6 weeks. So what we can do is we can get the change started, because if we overwhelm them, they never start in the first place. So now we can make huge shifts in whether it's wellness, weight loss, or anti-aging. And of course, digestion is part of that. And then we could say, okay, you did that. Now you keep it. Let's move on to the next thing. Let's add on rather than never getting things done. That's such a big thing. So choose 1 or 2 of these items today. But before we get into those 8 items, I want you to think about this. A lot of times, the reason we overeat, or we really eat when we shouldn't, because hopefully you've been listening to the podcast for a little bit. You've gone back to maybe previous episodes, and you really looked into why 3 meals per day. I did a podcast called Why 3 Meals Per Day. My team is listening to this. Hopefully we can embed that show today at stevencabral.com/1341. So we'll try to embed the show, Why 3 Meals Per Day, or why make the move to 3 meals per day. So whether you're eating 3 to 4 meals per day, you'll learn more about it on that show. And if you're eating then outside of those times, you're really not being mindful in your eating. You know you shouldn't be eating at those times. You know it's most likely going to dysregulate your blood sugar, that it's going to cause more inflammation, more endotoxins. So why do it? Well, there's 2 main reasons before we get into the 8 tips. One is emotional. I mean, you might be stressed at work. Your kids might have you stressed. I mean, there's a million reasons to be stressed, right? I don't have to give you those reasons. You have your own. So a lot of people turn to eating or drinking. Why? Well, because it works. Because it just flat out works. It gives you that dopamine hit, produces most likely a little bit of serotonin with those carbs, and you feel great for at least 20 minutes. And that's what your body's looking for. Same reason, again, people may drink alcohol. Same reason people smoke. Relaxation. Calming the nervous system. There are other ways to do it, and I want you to be careful about using food, alcohol, or drugs to palliate those symptoms of stress. Again, I'm not here preaching. I'm not saying that it's easy. I'm not saying every once in a while, if I'm stressed, I might not reach for something. What I'm saying is we have to work not to do that. And the reason is it's going to set us up for, one, a really long-term and poor relationship with food or alcohol or drugs. And the other is that it's going to move us away. Every time we do that, it's going to move us away from the health, the weight loss, and the anti-aging that we really want. And the second reason is this. Many, many times, and I've worked with so many private clients with this, their relationships a lot of times are tied to food or alcohol with their friends. So when they go out with their friends, they have to drink. Or they go out with their friends and they have to eat poorly, pizza, whatever it might be. It's a tough thing. It really is. Because here they are, they took the 21 days, they really did that deep CBO protocol or elimination diet or detox. And now they've gotten these results and they want to keep them, but they also want to keep their friends. So what we work on is saying, hey, you can still go out. You can still have a good time with your friends. Plan that. That's your cheat meal. But it can't be nightly. It can't be 3 or 4 nights a week. What do we do here? Well, we learn that we can still go out and not necessarily have all those food, but we can still have fun with our friends. I did an episode on that as well. You can definitely tune into that. So be careful of what triggers you, those triggering environments. There's the emotional eating, but then there's also the triggering environments. With this friend, we go out and we have a few drinks together. That's all we do. Can you do anything else with that friend? That's what I ask. But no, that's my friend I drink with. Well, we have to be careful there because that drinking might not be in line with you repairing your digestive system or getting rid of that autoimmune-based issue. So I won't go into all the different triggers that there could be, but I want you to look at this. Every time you travel, you do this. Every time, again, you see this old friend from out of town, you do this. All right? So let's be mindful of those behaviors as well. Now, every time, though, you do sit down for a meal, and most likely it's only 3 times a day. Could be 4. Might even be 2 for some people. But every time you do eat, I want you to think about these 8 specific steps. They're not difficult. And I just want you to choose 1 or 2 of them today. The first one is this. I want you to actually listen. And I want you to be more aware of if you're even hungry or not. Because so many of us have gotten into the habit of just snacking throughout the day because it's something to do. Literally, we're bored. And it gives us something to do. Or we're stressed. What I want you to ask yourself is, am I really hungry? And if I am, when's the last time I ate? And if it's within 3 or 4 hours, either you didn't eat the right thing at the meal before, or you might actually just be thirsty. You might be dehydrated. Ask yourself next, when's the last time I had a glass of water? So tune into the episode I did just a few weeks back on when to drink water throughout the day. If you didn't check that out, I think you'll be surprised. There are actually specific times that when you drink water, it does not mix with the food in your stomach so that it doesn't dilute all those digestive juices, but instead it hydrates you. That was episode 1300, StephenCabral.com/1300 if you want to tune into that show. So listen to see if you're actually hungry or not. Now, some people, they don't eat because they're never hungry. That isn't good either. That means your body is not turning on its digestive system. It could just be chronically stressed. So we do have to get into an eating-based routine. Try to eat if you can, just like when you go to bed, within the same half hour or so every single day. If you eat at 8 o'clock in the morning, great. If then you typically eat at 12, 12:30, great. And then if you typically eat at 6, fantastic. Try to keep it within a half hour those same times every day. All right? Look at that and then see, is my body ready now to take the next meal? The second one is this. Try to set a time for your meal to actually last. Now, I know this is going to sound very strange, but being mindful just means that you are being more conscious of what you are typically doing at that time or what you are doing in that moment. So at this moment, I'm speaking into a microphone. I'm recording this podcast. I'm trying to be mindful of the message I'm sharing with you. I'm not thinking about everything I may have to do after this or everything I have to do tomorrow. What I want to do right now is stay focused on this one thing. And it should be the same when you sit down for a meal. When I drink my smoothie in the morning, I'm typically at my desk. I'm trying to enjoy that smoothie. I'm trying to actually taste, and I'll get into that in just a moment, what it actually tastes like. Not mindlessly consume the calories. Because I'm going to be giving you a lot of Ayurvedic-based tips today. Because these are all Ayurvedic tips. Like, we didn't make this up in the year 2019 or so. These are all Ayurvedic. Every single one of them. Ayurveda has the best saying. And it's death looks over the man or woman who eats while standing. That's a very rough translation. I couldn't give you the Sanskrit or Hindi-based translation. But I'll tell you this, makes a lot of sense. If you don't sit down and you don't relax while standing, you create what's called more ama in the body. And only now, past the year 2000, do we know what that actually means. Ayurveda knew it 6,000 years ago. They love to call Ayurveda quackery. They love to call it folk medicine. Well, here's the thing. There's more truth in Ayurveda than there will ever be in any type of pharmaceutical-based medicine. There's more truth. It is the essence of life. It's the truth of life. So here's the thing. Now we know that ama, we call it endotoxins. You don't digest as well when you're standing. You're not in the parasympathetic nervous system. You're not as relaxed. Well, that means you're not going to absorb it as well. What happens if you don't absorb it as well? It ferments, it putrefies, it creates additional bacteria, which seeps into the bloodstream and further triggers the immune system. We know that now. Again, Ayurveda knew it many years ago. Sit down, eat slowly, try to make your meal last at least 10 minutes. At least 10 minutes. Chew. And that's my next one. The third step is this. Chew 30 to 50 times. Now you might say, I can't chew my food 30 to 50 times. Well, some foods you may be able to, some you can't. If you're eating a salad, trust me, you want to chew that 30 to 50 times. You really do. Here's why. Even cows with their multiple stomachs and a rumen chew grass a couple hundred times, and they're moving laterally. They're actually grinding it down, and then they swallow it. Sometimes they honestly regurgitate it and chew it again. That's so that they can actually break down those plant fibers, that cellulose. They have a much stronger digestive system for raw greens than we do. Yet we think that we can chew lettuce 3 or 4 times and swallow it and just ask our digestive system or our intestines, well, part of our digestive system, to break all that down? We can't. We're not going to be able to. So you can say, oh, well, spinach is loaded with iron. Sure. If you can chew it, break it down, and then you have stomach acid and you have enzymes to be able to use all of it, absolutely, right? But chew it first. Now, does it matter if it's 30 or 50 times? Nope. All that matters is this. Chew your food until it becomes a paste. Now, what happens is this. You swallow that into your stomach, your digestive system has to do so much less work. Guess what happens if you ask your digestive system to do less work? You're left with all of that extra energy that now doesn't have to be diverted to digestion. This was a game changer for me. I started doing smoothies for breakfast, energy through the roof after 3 weeks. Why? I wasn't trying to break down turkey sausages or ham and eggs and whatever else I was eating for breakfast when I was trying to do more bodybuilding. Amazing. At least double the energy. At least. Me drinking a smoothie? It's already been blended. What do I need to do? Not much. Sip it. Ease it into the digestive system. Enjoy it. Just don't chug it all at once. That's it. So again, chew your food to a paste. 30 to 50 times. Does it matter? No, but if you start to count how much you chew it, guess what? You're being mindful. You're thinking about chewing your food, mixing it with saliva. And that is now telling your brain, which gives your belly signals of what to do, how to break it down. And now actually in Ayurveda, which they talked about in Ayurveda, they're finding out now, that sends signals directly to your gut to tell your body how much hydrochloric acid needs to be made, how much or what type of enzymes need to be produced. Pretty amazing. Number 4 is this. Get rid of the phone, turn off the TV, remove the distractions that allow you from focusing on your meal. So let's say, and I talked about this yesterday on the show as well, let's say I'm with my family at night, which I am, almost 7 out of 7 nights for dinner, and I'm eating with them. I'll tell you, if we had our phones, we'd be distracted. Oh, there's a text message. There's a message from work. Hey, an email popped up. Oh, look at this on social. No, you have to get rid of that. If you're with your family, you focus on them and your food. And hopefully you're laughing, you're talking about your day, you're enjoying the commune of that meal. Now, we've talked about that in every one of the blue zones. Your tribe, your family, your community. What does that do? It relaxes you, right? Hopefully you're enjoying your meal with your family. Keep the heavy discussions, right? Keep the heavy discussions for another time. Not while dinner, not while you're eating, and not after dinner either. Allow that for digestion. Save it for another time, a couple hours before you eat, I think. That's it. And then if you can do one extra level, what I do sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes at lunch, I'll do a silent lunch. Why? I'm talking all day. I meet with people all day. I love it. But now, what if you could sit down with your meal? Again, it might only be 10 minutes, 15 minutes max, right? No, not many people eat for a half hour straight. So can you take 10 minutes to just relax, breathe, take one bite at a time, put your fork down, chew, feel your body actually extracting the nutrients from that, swallowing it, and really being able to digest that? That is one way to become much more mindful. If you eat in silence and you honestly quiet the mind, almost like a meditation, you're going to be able to encompass all of these others combined. You really will. The next one is this, and I just touched on it, so I got a little ahead of myself. Feel the food inside your mouth. When's the last time you did that? I mean, I know some of these things might sound a little crazy right now. They're going to be game changers if you do them. Simple. I mean, the reason is simple. If you better digest your food, you extract more of the vitamins, minerals, fatty acids, amino acids, everything your body needs to run. Your body runs on nutrients. The better you digest them, the less energy you take to do that, the more energy you're left with. Life changes. You live with more vitality. Now, with all that vitality, you can use it for whatever you want. Exercise, going back to school, running around to a million different kids' events, go out there dating, like whatever it is. You have all that energy now. You need that back. Eating is the way to do that. We all have to eat. One of the nice things is to be a little bit more mindful while we're doing it. So focus on each bite and chewing all of the bites and also feeling the texture and tasting the flavors. That's so big in Ayurveda. They talk about even at a meal, you need all the 5 tastes, right? You need the astringent, you need the pungent, you need the salty, you need the sweet. You need all of these at one meal. The bitter, those are our dark greens, our arugula, things like that, parsley. So that will enable you now, and the crunches and the texture, to really enjoy that meal, probably for the first time. The 7th one is this, and this is important. It goes back to another Ayurvedic philosophy. I was learning Ayurveda, studying it for many years. One of my first internship, blown away by the next level I was taught. So I sat down, brilliant teacher. I was in Sri Lanka at the time. I was getting ready. I had to pass certain exams before I was ever allowed to work with any of the wellness-based clients or patients they had at the clinic there. And they were teaching us about diet, which is obviously so big. Well, in Ayurveda, you have 4 parts to digestion, or the stomach, they look at it. And what we do is we put in 2 25% portions as food. So basically half the stomach is divided in 4, but we take half of that, and that's for food. 25% is for a little bit of warm liquid or tea or just enough to get the food down. And then 25% is left for air or space or vata, movement, so that you can digest the food. So in Ayurveda, they say, and everywhere around the world, don't eat past 80% full. It's good advice. What does that mean? Well, you actually stop eating when you're no longer hungry. But the only way that happens is to eat slowly, because it can take 10 to 20 minutes for your stomach, as it starts to expand, to tell your brain that you're full. So eat slowly, very, very slowly. Chew that food and give your body time to actually say, oh, I've had enough. Now, if there's still food on your plate, you don't have to eat it. You really don't. You can say, I've had enough. Now, if you've already portioned out the meal, then you're good. But if you're out to a big dinner, just because you're enjoying the meal doesn't mean you need to eat the entire 12-inch plate of food. You can say, that was delicious. That was fantastic. I'm going to stop there. So you don't want to eat until you're full. Too many people have said that for too long. You want to eat until you are satisfied, and you won't be satisfied if you're not mindful of that meal. The last one is this, and it's probably the most important. And I didn't fully get this. I honestly did not. I was certainly a waster of food, too gluttonous. When I was back in my, again, natural bodybuilding days, and when I say bodybuilding, I don't mean that I was ever, as big as one of my friends and colleagues, Ben Pekulski, or even as big as Jay Ferrugia. Like I was never that big, but I got big. I mean, I was about 200 pounds and about 5'8". So when you look at that, that's pretty big on my frame. But here's the thing, that was done not healthily. That was done with way too much protein consumption, way too many calories. And if I had the knowledge that I have now, well, first I wouldn't set that out as a goal. I would set the goal to be healthy rather than that. But again, I was in my 20s and it was about creating a big muscular body. It was all those things. And I'm not happy. I'm not unhappy about the experience. So again, I learned a lot from it. But here's the thing. I wasn't appreciative of food. I wasn't appreciative of the gift that I have, that I'm able to actually eat food whenever I want. I could walk out of my office right now in Boston and go wherever I want within 100 yards and have food. And most people listening to this show, if you have a smartphone and you're listening to this, you do too. But when I went overseas, it was something I had never seen before. Now, of course, in Boston, about 10% of the people go to bed hungry. That's not good either. We have a lot of homeless people in Boston. We have a lot of people living below that poverty line, and that's not good either. So the least that I can do is try to give when I can give, but I can also be appreciative of the food that I have. So if I'm appreciative of what's in front of me, I can enjoy that meal a little bit more. I can give thanks. I can give gratitude. And I can say, listen, if I'm lucky enough to have this food and this meal in front of me, I can take a few minutes to slow down. I can enjoy this meal, allow my body to get into that parasympathetic nervous system. I can breathe, slow my heart rate, and enjoy this food. Absorb it and understand that every single one of the nutrients from this life-giving food is giving me life. And when you can start to look at food in that way, things change. They change for you mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And if your goal is to physically transform your body in terms of body transformation, weight loss, definition, or to get well, or to live longer, mindfulness in your eating and the way that you go about approaching each meal has to be a part of that. Hopefully today's show was helpful. As always, if it was, please do feel free to pass this show along to anyone else you believe it could serve. Did you know that the body really only becomes sick or imbalanced in only two ways? Over time, you become deficient in vital nutrients, and you also accumulate toxins internally and from the environment. As those nutrients diminish and you increase your total toxic load, your body then begins to show the first signs of dis-ease. It's actually quite predictable, and the good news is that if we know how you began to fill up that proverbial rain barrel, we also know how to empty it to begin the healing process. I was fortunate enough to learn this ancient healing process from my mentor after suffering from debilitating diseases for close to a decade. It was only when I began to implement these techniques did I finally overcome my illnesses and go on to live a life of energy and vitality that I now enjoy. I'd like to share with you now what I discovered after traveling all over the world and how to combine the best of ancient healing wisdom with state-of-the-art science. Allow me to teach you exactly how I've been able to help over 250,000 people to empty their rain barrel and begin to transform their body and lives into what they've always hoped they could be. To get your copy of the international bestseller, The Rain Barrel Effect, simply go to stephencabral.com/rainbarrel.